Self-analysis necessary. The solution of mental problems is more important to us than physical, although this does not seem true to the average individual lost in the twisted paths of materialism. Free the mind and the battle is almost won. Mental anguish is far greater than physical. For the mind can conquer physical pain, but it is necessary for the spiritual forces to aid the suffering mind. The savages worship a god who will send rain and sunshine and protect them from lightning. The philosopher seeks a God who will give peace in mind and soul. Do we know in whom we believe? If so, then the ideal or standard toward which we move becomes the basis for the activity of faith in constant action from the mental, imaginative, and spiritual forces. Thus we may express or bring into manifestation that which is held as our ideal, not for self-exaltation, but rather to show the blessings we have received and to see them manifested in the lives of others. Let us look within ourselves and know that we are workers together with God. We should analyze ourselves to find out just where the flesh is weak, where we are most likely to fail, and then seek a constant reinforcement of spirit that will make us hold on with unwavering faith to our ideal. This makes also for those determinations as it were in the experience of the entity, even to that point where oft others consider the entity rather inclined to be set or determined in its manner or activity. But if these are held to, that which the entity desires, wishes, builds within itself, it may in this experience to the greater extent attain to. For though the entity little understands as yet, if there is the intense study of how mind is indeed the builder, it will see that what is held in the act of mental vision becomes a reality in the material experience. For mind is the builder, and that which we think upon may become crimes or miracles. For thoughts are things, and as their currents run through the environs of an entity's experience, these become barriers or stepping stones, dependent upon the manner in which these are laid as it were. For as the mental dwells upon these thoughts, so does it give strength, power to things that do not appear. And thus does indeed there become that as is so oft given, that faith is the evidence of things not seen. First, analyze self and self's purposes. Know thy ideals and know the difference between ideals and ideas. Few individuals have ideals that are based upon spiritual things, of which the mental and material ideals are merely the shadow. Ideas are thoughts, but thoughts are not always ideals. Know the author of thy ideal, and know that it is able to keep thee in whatever may be thy experience. And always be ready to give an answer for the faith that lies within thee. Is there any advice you can give to help me? If you will apply that as here given, it will help. First, find self and self's relation, and what is desired to be done. Enter close oft into communion, into meditation with the consciousness within thyself of thy relationship to thy Creator. And then, as this is aroused, and you make application of the material things for the physical relief to give expression of same becomes naturally a part of the self. He that expects and puts his trust and faith in the Lord shall not be disappointed. He that would be double-minded may expect to be disturbed in the mental visions that are brought in the experience of such an one from time to time. The law is perfect. The flesh is weak. The spirit is willing. In making each compatible, then, an exercising of the prerogative that makes for the differentiation between an automaton and a living example is made manifest. Thus the sojourns of the entity in the earth become the greater ruling influences. But, as indicated, the greater study of man is man. The entity will find that it is made up of, or in fact is, a body, a physical being, visible. A mind, a body, only the effects of same may be seen in that which causes the entity to speak or to act in this or that manner towards its fellow man. Then it is the soul body or the entity that is eternal. These are one. Just as the material concept of the creative force is Father, Son and Holy Spirit, and the answer to those influences as of the bodies represented in the individual entity. These should be treated as such. For each has its attributes and that in which it is affected by or affects or acts upon in response to the same influences in the individuals whom the entity may call friends or foes. But if you would have friends, be friendly. If you would be forgiven, you must forgive. If you would be thought well of, think well of others, not for thine own individual self, but for that which is thy ideal, that the principles and purposes, hopes and desires of self may be glorified in the earth. First then study to know self, body, mind, soul. Its relationships as one to another, and its activity and the activity of each in a material world. And that the relationships of self as an individual to the fellow man are a reflection of the relationships self bears with creative forces or God. Then, first find self and the promptings of the inner self. What are the motivative influences in the experience? And enjoin self and those things that may deal with the constructive force in the creating of new experiences for man, in the activative forces of those things that become creative in the material plane. These will offer an outlet for the abilities of the entity that will bring material mental success to the experience of the entity. Or join with those who may be in that field of activity of the scientific research into other fields where there are the development for the searching for lost or hidden civilizations or activities. This will bring the experience to the entity through the abilities for the creating of aids and helps to man's experience in its active forces from without, which will bring understanding in many of the fields of activity of the entity. Then, as ye show forth the fruits of the Spirit. What are these? Faith, hope, patience, long-suffering, kindness, gentleness, brotherly love, these be those over which so many stumble. Yet they are the very voices, yea the very morning sun's light in which the entity has caught that vision of the new age, the new understanding, the new seeking for the relationships of a creative force to the sons of men.